Welcome to the Man Up channel. I am your host, Bob Buckland, and with me again today is John Font.
Hello, how are we doing today?
And today we are going to be talking about the Netflix stand-up comedian show, Hannah Gadsby Douglas.
Hannah Gadsby and her dog Douglas take the stage for her second Netflix series, or second Netflix comedy. Can we call it comedy?
Debatable at best.
So what was that dog made out of? She has a dog on stage with her that is a representation of her dog, of her first dog Douglas that she ever had as an adult.
That dog, I believe she said, was $20,000, and arguably probably the most interesting thing on this show, Douglas, the dog was made out of crayons. And it was a full-size dog, whatever breed that was. I couldn't tell, didn't care. But that was probably the most interesting thing on the show.
So you said you watched this, was it last week? You watched this
I did.
special?
I watched the special all the way through. Let's see, it was probably 4 or 5 days ago. And honestly, I don't remember much of it. As someone that's watched a lot of stand-up comedy on Netflix, I was not impressed with this one.
And I mean, today I've been watching a lot of the shorts that she has on YouTube and a lot of the premieres. Her first stand-up comedy special on Netflix was called Nanette back in 2018. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 100% 5-star review from the Tomato Meter. That was the Tomato Meter, and there was 48 critics, and they gave her a 100% all 5 stars. According to the audience, though, 1,691 people weighed in on this, and they gave her a 24%. We read some of the reviews, and some of them are pretty just mean. I mean, I think a lot of the reviews, I think some of the more honest reviews were, this isn't comedy, we didn't laugh.
I haven't watched Nanette yet, but I have watched Douglas, and I have watched her TED Talk now. It's just not comedy. It wasn't funny. I could see her being a motivational speaker. I know we were talking about that earlier, but as far as a stand-up comic, no. At least her style or brand of comedy, however you want to phrase that term, just was not appealing to me. And as you just said with your Rotten Tomato scores of 1,600 people, it's not good.
Not the 75% of the people that watch it. I would tell you to check out her TED Talk. Honestly, really outlines, I think, her voice in comedy when she said that, first of all, she said she wanted to break comedy. I think you can't break comedy. There's always something interesting out there. There's always something interesting to do. I always loved George Carlin because he had a different brand of comedy. But he was never what like anybody else would have done. If anybody broke comedy, I would have said it was Carlin a long time ago.
Well, I mean, everybody will find different things funny. I mean, that's what's great with individualism. I mean, everyone has something out there they can relate to. And with Hannah Gadsby, with what she's claiming as she broke comedy, no. I mean, I haven't watched Nanette yet, but from what I've heard from her talking about it with a TED Talk, it was more of the life story and what she went through. I mean, it sounds sad. I mean, for her to grow up with autism and what she had to go through and then to become this level of success, I give her all the applause that comes with that. But at the same time, no, she didn't break comedy. She told a sad story.
Well, and that wasn't funny. And I mean, it's one of those, I think, when you go into a situation, if I'm looking at a newspaper and I'm looking for a color cartoon, I'm not going to find it unless it's Sunday. Because they don't do color cartoons and stuff. Because you're looking for something specific.
Well, they should. I like the colored cartoons.
Right. But, I mean, they're looking for something specific. And I think some of the things that she put out about her, I think, are interesting. But they're not what I would call inherently funny.
They're not. With the Douglas comedy special, there was one I do remember. She was talking about being at a dog park. If you haven't watched it yet, there's going to be some spoilers on the show, so right now is going to be one of them. Okay, now we can continue. It's she was at a dog park with her dog, I'm assuming Douglas at the time.
Douglas, that's what she said.
And a guy came up to her and said she wasn't smiling enough, which I've heard this argument before by other women with resting face. We'll call it that for now. We all know what we're talking about. You know what?
We've seen some women with RBF, and it's rough. It's rough. We know you have to work at it.
And every last one of them does say it's offensive for you to come up and say, "Oh, you're not smiling enough. You'd be a lot prettier if you smile." And okay. It was just stories like that she had for her hour-long special, and it was just mind-numbing.
Well, and then we were reading about how this was last year back in June, so this was a year-old article about how she was bashing Louis C.K. because even though he had been accused of sexual misconduct and had made a return to comedy and still was doing comedy the way that Louis C.K. has always done comedy, which is kind of rough and rude. And she was saying that he's the joke now. I think it's important to keep making that joke. He has not reassessed his position of power, and that is why he abuses it. It's difficult to see a shift in your own power and privilege, but it's not something we're trained to do. He still honestly thinks he's a victim of all of this.
Well, and that's the kicker there. It's after watching TED Talk and her Douglas, I picked up two things from her show. And the number one is that I'm the victim, and the number two thing is white straight men are the problem. And for her to say this about J.K. Lewis, that he's the problem, it's just going back into the narrative that all white men are bad. This is coming from a person that looks like a white man.
Well, she obviously is pushing that envelope to go that way, but a lot of her jokes are focused at white men, and she doesn't really have a reason necessarily to hate us. She just does. I don't know.
No, we have a website pulled up here, 22 quotes from Hannah Gadsby. And a lot of them, here's one. We know that boys are at the mercy of their hormones. We're just culturally incapable of holding them accountable for their own actions, so we hold women accountable. This is pretty much the entire theme of her show. Boys are bad, girl good. Girl gets blamed for everything. Boys are the problem. And no, boys will be boys. That's nothing to do with saying rape culture is okay. No guy ever has went, oh yeah, he's just a guy, that's why he raped her. No one supports that. We all agree that if there is rape culture, that dude needs to go to jail and never come back out.
But and the thing is, we are, especially like Bob and I here, we both have daughters. And if stuff like that ever happened to our daughters, or if we found out that our sons did anything like that, that would never ever be an okay excuse for either of us.
It would never be. It would never be. And that's why I'm trying my hardest right now to raise my daughter so she's not a victim. She has been in karate for 4 years now. My daughter knows proper hand control for shooting handguns. I am raising her to be a strong, independent woman that doesn't need a man. But at the same time, I'm also watching my wife raise my sons to be the gentleman that I would want, hopefully someday, that my daughter to find someone like that too. To have someone that's wants to hold the door open for her, not because she can't, but because he values the worth of my daughter.
Absolutely. And those are things that are very, very important. We are trying to raise high quality individuals. And I think that anybody who demeans either sex for those things or tries to give the other sex a pass on any of those things is just wrong. Chivalry was there for a reason, and it still is. And we still try to put those things in our kids. And I think that when you try and tell your daughters that boys just can't handle it, that's not an okay expectation for them. And when you flip that around, that's not an okay expectation for boys that, well, if a girl's dressed a certain way, then you can do whatever you want. That's not okay expectations as parents. No. And I think I don't think that's funny.
It's not. And You know what? We can talk about what it really means for boys to be boys. I can give you an example from my childhood. There was me, my older brother, and probably 4 other neighborhood boys that we would all get together, and it was about us being idiots. My one neighbor had a fairly good size driveway that was kind of up on a hill, so we built a bike ramp on the bottom of it to see how high we could launch each other. That's the example of boys will be boys. I can't tell you how much skin I lost on the pavement.
Oh yeah, I mean,
boys will be boys.
Yeah, we all ran out and like would lean over creeks and rivers and be like, I'm just gonna throw this rock in there and then fall in and then come home and try and explain to your mom why you're a muddy soaking mess. And
here's probably the ultimate example of boys to be boys I can give you, is that my older cousin convinced me to pee on an electric fence. That is boys will be boys.
For those of you who don't live in the country, when you pee on an electric fence, your pee completes the circuit.
And it hurts.
You touch that electric fence and feel it all the way to your bladder.
If you want to pause the video right now, we'll give you a couple seconds. And just go ahead and look up guy leans on electric fence or guy pees on an electric fence and see what happens.
It's not pretty. It's not pretty.
All right. And getting back to Gadsby. You know, I just really don't have anything memorable to come back about it and say.
I feel bad for her in the sense of, one, I think that some people are taking some things out on her that they shouldn't necessarily. I don't think anybody should ever be made fun of for their weight or for the way they look. I don't think you need to be calling anybody ugly. There's plenty of internet trolls out there, though, and if you put anything on the internet, you're going to get trolled. And two, I mean, yes, we all have our own problems. We all think about things differently. I think that's one of the things that makes comedy funny, is because people look at a situation and you're like, I never thought about it that way. I think it's funny. But at the same time, just because I don't appreciate your art or don't think that your art is good doesn't mean that I hate you and that I'm a homophobic psychopath or whatever you want to call it. I think it's sad that she thinks that the only way that she can make things funny is if she makes fun of white males. She never talks about her dad, so I don't know where her dad fits into the situation. But I think especially if you haven't had a strong male influence in your life, it's hard to look at those things and realize what you should be doing.
The sad truth is right now is that the narrative going out there, if you listen to a lot of the far left, there's different groups out there. We're not going to name any of them right now. But their key solution to everything is that the white straight man is bad. And what her comedy stand-up is saying, it just fits into that narrative. So I feel like that's why she miraculously became popular after Nanette.
Give her 100%.
I can't figure it out, dude. I can't. I looked at Rotten Tomatoes for this Douglas, and they gave her a 92% on Douglas. You said Nanette, they gave her 100%. She's not funny.
She's very wishy-washy on the things that she talks about, too. It's just, yeah, I don't get it. It's not funny to me, and I didn't think it was interesting. Probably trying to sell to the wrong crowd, considering we're white males, and like if you just want to come out and make fun of us, I guess go for it, but...
Well, in all fairness, in the first 15 minutes of Douglas, which I clocked it, 15 minutes, she came out and said, if you're the straight white male, you're not going to like the show. You're going to hate it, and haters are going to hate, and I'm going to be coming for you.
Right, and I just think the sad part about that is when she was doing her other stand-up on why she takes the pill, it's because, well, she may not feel like a lesbian that day, and she wants to be protected.
Teach their own.
I guess, but
that's all I have to say about that. Teach their own.
Well, I think it just leads to other things. So, the pill does not protect against other sexually transmitted diseases.
And no, the Man Up channel is not sponsored by any of these pills.
No, it's just the pill, the giant pill. You just go out and take a chew off of it every Tuesday. I got one in the backyard. We keep propane in it. Well, y'all.
Oh, yeah. That was one of the only things I really found funny about that
The only joke that we both found funny, the y'all joke.
Yo, oh. Let
She
me pull that
said
up
she's
here
taking
real
it
quick.
home to Australia with her.
Let me pull this up here real quick, because it was the only thing that I found funny in here. Y'all is the best, most inclusive second person plural pronoun in the English speaking world. I completely agree with this. It was the only positive thing. Well, besides Douglas the dog, that was the second. So, yeah, the only two positive things I can come out with her show is a dog made of crayons, and the y'all is the best word in the English language.
Which I find hilarious because if she went to Tennessee, they'd probably kill her.
She'd blend in. There's all just a bunch of white guys there.
With long hair. Oh, goodness.
And with saying that, this is the Man Up channel. We would like to hear your comments too. If you have watched anything with Hannah Gadsby, Douglas, TED Talks, or Nanette, please like, subscribe, and we will catch you later.
See ya.